Izzuddin Radallah, I'm the president of Islamic Society of St. Catherine's. Welcome for our first conference. This inshallah will be a beginning of a series of workshops. Yesterday or Friday, mashallah, Sheikh Abdullah Idris was here. He talked about the challenges facing the Muslim families in North America. Mashallah, it was very fantastic. So that was like a setup for the stage for today. Alhamdulillah, we have Brother Umar Zia. He's a counselor with Peel Board of Education. We have Sister Farah Fatia. She's the principal of Main Gate Islamic School Academy, Mississauga. And also we have, of course, our Imam Mustafa, inshallah, who will speak at the end. This is just the beginning, inshallah. They said Sister Zakia at the end will give you details of what we're going to do through the year, inshallah. I'll ask Brother Ahmed to come and read, inshallah, for you the ayat, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
The MC for our conference today is Sister Dujaina Sati and Yaqeen Mubarak. So they will take, inshallah, take you from here through the conference, inshallah. If Sister Yaqeen and Sister Dujaina.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sujaina and welcome everyone to the first of many of our planned parenting workshops organized by the Islamic Society of St. Catherine's. Inshallah, we hope this conference will raise awareness and address the new health curriculum being introduced in all the schools, in the public schools in the new year. This change has yet to be implemented in the schools across the Niagara region. Therefore, we hope the information provided today will allow parents to familiarize themselves with the new curriculum as well as address common questions and concerns you may have. We would also like to announce our new workshop series that will take place in our community in the near future, inshallah. The aim of these workshops is to provide further information and build parents' confidence in regards to dealing with many issues facing our Muslim youth and children raised in the West. Please note that the viewpoints expressed in today's conference are completely neutral with regards to the topic. It is not our intention to persuade anyone into taking particular action, rather to provide you with all the information you need to make a decision. That being said, I will now pass the mic to Sister Yaqeen, who will introduce our first speaker and go over the question and answer period.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Sister Yaqeen and I will be co-emceeing for the event today. So actually before I introduce our first speaker, I want to let you know how the Q&A session will work. So inshallah, after every speaker there will be a brief Q&A session where it will be like a live Q&A. So if you have a question, you can just raise your hand and ask our speaker. If you're uncomfortable doing so, we will have 2 volunteers who will be circulating around. So you can just quietly signal to one of them and they'll have a piece of pen and paper and they'll come to you and then you can write your question down and then we'll bring it up to the speaker and inshallah address your question. So that being said, inshallah, I'll introduce our first speaker of the night, who will be Sister Farah Marfatia. Sister Marfatia is the principal of Man Gate Islamic Academy, which is an elementary and junior school located in Mississauga. Mrs. Marfatia harnesses a diverse academic and professional background as she strives to turn Main Gate Islamic Academy into a world-class institution for our youth. Mrs. Marfatia received her Honors Bachelor of Science from the University of Toronto, and a regulatory and quality certification from Seneca at York University. With these qualifications, she has worked in the pharmaceutical industry where she won numerous awards for her contributions. Aiming to bring her corporate expertise into the field of education, Mrs. Marfatia earned a Teaching English as a Second Language certification and began her foray into teaching. Currently, she is the principal at Maygate Islamic Academy and is completing her Master's in Education at Brock University. In her free time, Mrs. Marfatia works tirelessly for the Muslim youth and community. And I would like to turn it over to Sister Farah Marfatia.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. So if you can't hear me, because I tend to lower my voice, I don't really project a lot, just call out and I'll start speaking a little bit louder. Okay, today's event, before I begin, if there are any kids in the audience, I just want to let the parents know that parental discretion is advised, because I'm going to be using a lot of explicit terminology because it's part of the curriculum. So if you're not sure, it's going to be pretty explicit. So if you want, you could make arrangements for your kids and have them outside or downstairs. There are already arrangements for kids, so I would suggest until you familiarize yourself with the curriculum, then you can make the decision as to what you want to share with your children, etc. So just note to all parents in the audience today. So I'd like to thank the Islamic Society of St. Catherine's for inviting me today to talk about this very, very important topic that's on the forefront today. I'm so happy that all of you guys came today because this is the first step in us helping our children and taking ownership and accountability of what we can do in order to help educate our kids. And with that, I'm going to start the presentation. So I have a couple of goals for today, and that basically is to give you 3 goals. So first, to provide you with a curriculum overview, like a summary of the curriculum, not as I see it, but as stated in the curriculum document. And then I'll go over a little bit about what's going on with Muslim youth today. And then we're going to go into options you have as parents. What I'm not going to do today is give you my opinion about this curriculum or my opinion on what you should do for your children, because everybody knows their own situation best and their own children best. So I'm going to give you all the tools you need so that you can make, inshallah, an informed decision for your family and your children today.
السلام عليكم. إن شاء الله أنا سأقوم بالترجمة اللغة العربية. هل فعلا نحتاج الترجمة ولا كله بيتكلم إنجليزي؟ محتاجين عربي؟ كم واحد يحتاج ترجمة عربي؟ طيب أنا عارف إن أنتم بتتكلموا إنجليزي أحسن من ملكة إنجلترا، بس إن شاء الله هنترجم عربي. هي طبعا قالت المتحدثة في الأول إن لو في أطفال صغار موجودين لو سمحتوا انزلوا تحت لأنها تستخدم بعض الألفاظ وربما لا تكون مناسبة. في السلايد الأول هي تتكلم عن 3 أمور، هتتكلم عن نظرة شاملة أو عامة للمنهج المقترح في ولاية أونتاريو، وتتكلم أيضا عن وضع الشباب في هذه المرحلة، وكذلك بعض الخيارات المتاحة بالنسبة للأسرة حتى تستطيع أنها تشوف الخيار المناسب بالنسبة لها وتختار.
So what we're going to start with is a little bit of a background in terms of the curriculum, because you should know the background in order to understand where the curriculum came from. So the curriculum, the health education curriculum, the physical education curriculum, is not just sex ed as we know it. It's actually the physical education curriculum. And we know it from 1998. That's the last time that it was updated. And in 2010, Kathleen Wynne was the education minister, and what she wanted to do is she wanted to revamp the curriculum. So she, along with her deputy minister, Ben Levin, and a number of educators as well, sat down, revised the curriculum, and proposed a new curriculum in 2010. At that time, Dalton McGuinty was premier, and there was such an uproar from parents, and specifically Catholic parents, regarding the changes to the sexual health portion of the curriculum, that Dalton McGuinty kind of backed away from making this curriculum mandatory at that time, and so he kind of scrapped it. In 2012, Bill 13 came out, and Bill 13 is called the Creating the Safe and Accepting Schools Act, and that's a law. And you'll think to yourself, well, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? So bear Bill 13 in mind because it'll come up later on in the presentation. So it states, all students should feel safe at school and deserve a positive school climate that is inclusive and accepting regardless of race, ancestry, place of origin, color, ethnic origin, citizenship, creed, sex, sexual orientation, age, marital status, etc. So basically everybody is equal. That's what this bill is trying to say, and that we have to create safe spaces so everybody feels that they're included and that they're being treated equally. There were 4 groups that received special status under this law, which passed, and those were clubs that promote gender equity, anti-racism, raise awareness for people with disabilities, and gay-straight alliances. So these are the 4 groups that got special consideration under this particular law. In 2012, Bill 13 passed and became law. In 2013, Ben Lemon, who was the Assistant Deputy Minister in 2010 when the proposed curriculum came out that was squashed, he was accused of he was accused of having child pornography, and just recently, I think the other day, he was charged. And then in 2014, who becomes Premier of Ontario? Kathleen Wynne. And what does Kathleen Wynne do? She wants, among all of her mandates as Premier, one of them is to push through this new curriculum. So what they did is, they looked at the 2010 curriculum, they revised the 2010 curriculum and added whatever else they wanted to, because really 5 years have gone by. They sent a survey among some parents, and then they put out this new curriculum, and that new curriculum is set to go live in September 2015. It was published for everybody to see in February. So if you want to take a look at the curriculum, just go to the Ministry of Education website and look under Physical and Health Education, and you want to look at the 2015 document. The document is very big. I think it's like 300 pages long. Of those 300 pages, I would say about 10% relates to sexual content, okay, in the curriculum itself.
طيب هو المنهج الجديد يعني بعض الأسر تظن أنه هو يتعامل فقط مع الثقافة الجنسية أو الثقافة أو التربية الثقافية فقط بالنسبة للطبيعة الجنسية للأطفال أو الشباب عموما، ولكن هو يتكلم عن الصحة التربية الصحية أو الجسدية عموما، والتربية الجنسية هي جزء منها، فهو ليس عن التربية الجنسية عموما ولكن هو جزء من المنهج. تطوير هذا المنهج هو بدأ منذ عام 1998، وطبعا كان في تعديلات كثيرة أهمها في 2012 بيل 13، ورأوا أن في احتياج لتطوير الجزء الخاص بالتربية الثقافية، حسوا أنه هو ما كانش يستوعب بعض الطوائف مخصوصة، مثلا مثل الناس ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة أو الناس الشواذ جنسيا. يعني بدأ هذا التفكير أو تم إصدار هذا القانون في 2012، وطبعا لما جت كاثلين وين يعني صارت مسؤولة في الولاية، فرأت إنه في حاجة إلى تنفيذ هذا القانون أو تطويره بشكل معين.
So now we're going to start with the summary of the curriculum. So what I've done is I took a look at the curriculum document. You should know that the summary that I'm about to provide you is not a summary of a 300-page document, because that would also include a summary of now the children are going to walk straight, not jump up and down. And again, that's a generality because it has to do with gym too, right? So I'm just going to give you a summary of what most people are concerned about, and that's as it relates to sexual content. So essentially all the changes I lumped into 4 categories. So when you go look at the curriculum document, you won't see these 4 categories. I just lumped them into these 4 sections so that it would be easier for everyone to understand what the major changes were. You should also note that this is a summary of the curriculum set out by the Ministry of Education. It's not my opinion about what a sexual education curriculum should look like. I'm not advocating for this curriculum. At the same time, I'm not against the curriculum either. It's just a summary. So there are 4 major changes to the curriculum, and those changes are changes to consent, changes to gender identity, changes to online safety, and changes to sexual health. And when I say changes, there are new additions as well. So changes or new additions to the 1998 curriculum. And the entire presentation is as compared to 1998. So in this summary section, I will outline the changes, and if there was no change, give or take, from the 1998 curriculum, I'll point that out to you so you know what's different and what's the same as well.
أول هتكلم عن الفرق بين المنهج اللي كان مستخدم في 1998 والمنهج الجديد اللي هو الجديد السنة دي 2015، وهي ترى إنه في 4 تعديلات جوهرية حصلت بين المنهجين من 98 ل 2015. التغيير الأول هيكون خاص بمسألة الكونسنت، إن الواحد مثلا الموافقة أو القبول إن هو يدخل في علاقة أو شيء من هذا القبيل. الأمر الثاني هو الهوية الجنسية بالنسبة لذكر أو أنثى أو أي خيار ثالث أضافوه إلى المنهج، وحماية الحماية الجنسية للإنسان لما يدخل أونلاين أو كذا على الإنترنت، والثالث هو الصحة الجنسية. فهذه ال4 محاور أو ال4 اختلافات الموجودة بين المنهجين.
Okay, so part 1, consent. What does consent mean? So consent was not part of the 1998 curriculum, so this is completely new to the curriculum. Grades 1 to 3, so consent basically means choosing yes or no. And from grades 1 to 3, the way consent manifests itself in the curriculum document is students will learn what consent means, and they'll learn how to use it to stand up for themselves and respect their own boundaries and the boundaries of others. So let me give you a small example. Let's say one child is bullying another child, it basically teaches children to say, no, that's not acceptable. You're not allowed to hurt me. You're not allowed to say that to me. Or no, you're not allowed to borrow my pencil. Or yes, you are allowed to borrow my pencil. So very clear saying yes or no, and a child being able to advocate for themselves. In grades 4 to 8, this is where the sexual consent comes in. And students will learn what sexual consent means. Sexual consent involves clear and intentional agreement to participate in sexual activity communicated either verbally or non-verbally between individuals. So what does that mean? That means no means no. If a girl does not want to have sexual relationship, she says no, and a boy must understand that means no, and vice versa. So a lot of people are kind of wondering, why do we need consent in the curriculum at all? And what was happening is that a lot of girls were being forced to, have sexual acts or do sexual acts, and then it would come down to a he said, she said. Well, I thought she said yes, and he said, oh, I thought she said no, and there would be it would be a point of contention, right? And so girls weren't being clear about saying no. Boys didn't understand that no means no, but then at the same time, there's also physical consent. So a girl doesn't just have to say no. If the girl is shying away from you, walking away from you, like not giving in to your advances, that's also a way to say no. So it's verbal and nonverbal. So boys and girls will both understand what consent looks like from a sexual perspective. And this is essentially to stop sexual assault or counter against it. And that was the impetus behind putting consent into the curriculum.
التعديل الأول هو عن مسألة القبول في الدخول في علاقات أو شيء. فهو طبعا من جريد 1 جريد 3 هيتكلم عن كيف إن الطالب أو الطفل يبقى عنده القدرة على اتخاذ قرار بشكل عام في أي تعامل مع أصحابه أو الطلبة الآخرين في المدرسة، إنه هو يقول أنا عاوز أعمل كذا أو مش عاوز أعمل كذا. هيبدأ من جريد 4 لجريد 8 يكلموا عن الموافقة للدخول في علاقات جنسية سواء بشكل لفظي أو خلال التفاعل. فلازم الشخص يقدر يقول أنا عاوز أكون في العلاقة دي أو لأ، بحيث إنه لو الإنسان رفض والإنسان الثاني عمل أي شيء، فمن حق الطرف الثاني إنه هو يلاحقه قضائيا أو يرفع عليه قضية، لأن ده بيعتبر اعتداء جنسي. فده التعديل الأول.
Okay, so the second part of the major change to the curriculum, and this is a new addition to the curriculum, was not there in 1998, so new. That is online safety. So from grades 1 to 3, children basically learn how to use the internet safely, and they're taught strategies to against harassment on the internet and abuse. So basically kids are taught, don't share your personal information, make sure you're careful when you're on the internet. If someone is harassing you or abusing you, this is what you can do, etc. Then you move into grade 4 to 8, and here is where the sex part comes in. Grade 4 to 6 will learn the risks of posting or sharing sexual images online. And grade 7 to 8 will learn about sexting and its legal, social, and emotional implications. So what are sexual images? Sexual images are any image which shows a person in various stages of disrobing or exposing themselves. And sexting occurs between two individuals, and it's basically using sexual language or sending sexual photos to each other back and forth. So a lot of people think, hey, why is this in the curriculum? So back in 1998, there wasn't that much use of the internet, right? I mean, think about in 1998, how prolific were cell phones. In 1998, I was going into my first year of university, and at that time, I had a pager. I actually didn't even have a cell phone until my second year of university, and my cell phone was like a Qualcomm. It was like this big, and it was really flat though, so I thought it was really cool. But I mean, that's back at that time, right? So cell phones, there was no like data, it was just to make a call, right? And pagers were still being used, even internet. So that's why the Ministry of Education actually had to update this portion of the curriculum, because now there's such prolific use of the internet that they have to teach children and children how to use the internet safely. In terms of the sexual part of it, a lot of people can't understand why the Ministry of Education is actually talking about sexting. It's actually a really big problem amongst youth. I really feel like giving a child a cell phone is like, I don't know if anybody's read Lord of the Flies here, but it's kind of like letting these kids loose in a virtual world, and they don't understand the consequences of their own actions, of the pictures they take of themselves, like selfies, and that they send to friends, then end up on Facebook. And then, when they get into a relationship with someone, they tend to trust them, and then they'll send explicit messages or even photographs. And a lot of people think that doesn't affect the Muslim community, but I am a principal of an Islamic school, and a lot of principals in Islamic schools may not want to admit that things like this are happening, but I'll tell you, my name is Sister Farah, I'm the principal of Main Gate Islamic Academy. I had a sexting issue last year. And by the way, cell phones are banned in our school. Like, I don't let them bring them to school. But when something happens at home and parents bring it to my attention and involves 2 students in my school, it becomes my problem. And what you need to understand, they'll also teach them the legal ramifications of having sexual images on their phone. So you should know that there's a law that's been recently passed and was enacted in March. It's called Protecting Canadians from the Online Crime Act. So when a child is underage and they send a sexually explicit photo of themselves, not engaged in an act necessarily, but in various stages of disrobing, they're a child. If they send that to someone else, that someone else is in possession of child pornography. So I want everybody to really understand the implications of that. Now, all of us here are sitting here, we're like, look, that's not going to happen to my kid. My kid is not going to be sending these images to them. And I'm saying, let's say for the sake of argument, that that's true. Inshallah, nobody in this room will ever have an issue where your child sends a horrible image or a sexual image to someone. But I want you to think out something. Your children are surrounded by a number of people. Do you think it's possible that someone may send them an image of themselves? Your child didn't ask for it, but they may get sent an image that they didn't want, and now it's on their cell phone. Their cell phone gets confiscated, and guess what? They have child pornography on their cell phones. So a lot of people think that's never going to happen. Nobody's ever going to charge them. Kids have been, I don't want to say prosecuted, but they have been questioned, etc., under the YCJA, and there have been numerous cases about children being in possession of child pornography because of this particular problem. So that's why it's made its way into the curriculum.
طبعا الفرق الثاني بين المنهج اللي كان موجود في 98 والمنهج الجديد مسألة الاستخدام الآمن للإنترنت، لأنه باك في 98 ما كانش الإنترنت مستخدم كتير، وكان أقصى ما نقدر نعمله في 98 الموبايل. تمام؟ لو تفتكروا الموبايل في 98 اللي كان كبير قد الجزمة كده كبير، فاكرينه كلنا طبعا، كان عندي واحد. وبعد كده في 2015 طبعا كل الناس دلوقتي على الفيسبوك، كل الناس على الانترنت، كل الناس بتبعت رسائل، فطبعا ده خلاف جوهري، ولذلك هذا الخلاف انعكس في المنهج الجديد. فمن جريد 1 لجريد 3 بيتكلموا عن استخدام الانترنت بشكل آمن، وان الانسان يحمي نفسه من اي استغلال قد يحصل على الانترنت عن طريق الفيسبوك او اي شيء ثاني. من جريد 4 لجريد 8 بدأوا طبعا يعلموهم عن مخاطر انه الواحد ياخد سيلفيز لنفسه، وبيحصل الشباب بيعملوا كده، يقلع هدومه من الحمام وياخد صورة ويبعتها لاصحابه على الفيسبوك او كذا، سواء اولاد او بنات، ده بيحصل. طبعا في بعض الحالات بتحصل في عند المسلمين برضه، مش غير المسلمين بس، بعض المسلمين بيحصل منه هذه الامور. الحاجة الثانية من جريد 7 لجريد 8 بيتكلموا على مسألة السكستنج، ان هو يبعت رسائل جنسية لواحد او لواحدة وكذا، وطلعت في قوانين بتقول انه لو حد مثلا وجدوا على تليفونه صور لولد تاني او طالب تاني في سن معين، ربما يلاحق قانونيا ان هو بينشر مثلا صور خليعة لاطفال او كذا، وربما يحصل له مشاكل بسبب هذه الامور.
So this is where we get into the really scary stuff that everyone's worried about, and that's the sexual health and development. So from grades 1 to 3, the major change here is that children in grade 1 will use the appropriate, will learn the appropriate terminology for their private parts. So they're going to learn words like penis, they're going to learn the words like vagina, and they're going to learn that these are the private areas of the body and this is the correct terms for it. And then from grades 4 to 5, they're going to learn about puberty, reproduction, and healthy relationships. Just to note that in grades 4 to 5, this is not a major change from the 1998 curriculum. So in grade 1, that's a major change, teaching the appropriate the names of the body parts. Grades 4 to 5, that's not a major change. It was in the 1998 curriculum. Grades 6 to 8, children may learn that masturbation is common, pleasurable, and not harmful. And they may learn about oral sex and anal sex and abstinence as it relates to STIs. And they will also learn about STIs. By the way, STIs are sexually transmitted infections. Contraceptives, pregnancy, desire, and pleasure. So you should know that STIs, contraceptives, pregnancy, desire, pleasure, not a change from 1998, was always there. And masturbation, masturbation, although not explicitly stated in the curriculum, was being taught in the classroom depending upon the teacher, but wasn't stated as an expectation, wasn't stated in the curriculum. Now, I want all of you to just note one thing. When I spoke about masturbation, oral sex, and anal sex, note that I said may. It's because in the curriculum, when you look at the curriculum, you'll see that there are teacher prompts and there are expectations. Expectations in the curriculum mean you have to teach it, you must teach it. A teacher prompt is also stated in the curriculum, but it's not an expectation. So teacher may choose to teach it or choose not to teach it. It's basically an example you can give for a particular expectation. Masturbation, oral sex, and anal sex, all three of those are part of teacher prompts. They are not expectations. They may not be taught. It depends on the teacher, okay? So a lot of people are finding it difficult to understand why in grades 1 to 3, the Ministry of Education wants to talk about the specific words of the private parts, to name private parts. And the way that came about was that there are people who work in the front lines with children who have been sexually abused, and it's very difficult for them, when the children don't know the real terminology to refer to their private parts, it's very difficult for them to understand how that child has been abused in order to get them the help that they need. That's one. The second thing is, let's say, for the sake of argument, not for the sake of argument, I'll talk about my own son. My own son was at home with a Filipino nanny when he was very young. And so the Filipino nanny used a strange word for his private part, and it's called a fatoi. I don't know, she just made it up. And then in class, he came like in JK or whatever, and he would walk around saying that word. And I knew what that word meant. Thank God nobody else knew what that word meant, right? And the teachers didn't know what that word meant. Now, na'udhu billah, imagine if something untoward would have happened to my son and he would have gone and said, this person touched my fatoi. A teacher wouldn't know what that meant. However, had he been taught the correct terminology, like somebody touched my penis, bingo bango, that's when you get like, CAS in, you get people in to help that child figure out what's going on. So that was the impetus behind why they want to teach children beginning in grade 1 the correct words for their private parts. The next part that people are concerned about is, why are you going to teach children about oral and anal sex? Like, what is that about? So the reason, so they're not teaching them specifically about oral and anal sex. Remember,